Mike, yeah, great. Everything is working. That's great. No need to reboot a computer stuff. Amazing. So let's see what we can discuss about building a design system with React in 2025. What would be different if you did that 5 years ago, and what may be different if you do that in 5 years. I think that's quite important to do. I do have a glass. I don't have a whiskey. I'm a huge fan of whiskey, but let's drink also, I guess. Cool, thank you. Really quickly, I'm Jean Burellier, big fan of whiskey, leading the platform team and a principal engineer at Sanofi, so big pharmaceutical company, big in Europe, even in the US. I'm contributing to multiple open source projects, mainly Node and Express. I also did some stuff for React. You can find me on all social, from Blue Sky, GitHub, LinkedIn, X/Twitter, depending which name you prefer. And really quickly, everyone is going into AI. AI is great. So let's ask ChatGPT what's a design system? And for ChatGPT, and it's basically the same answer if you ask Claude or other AI, a design system is just a collection of reusable components, guidelines, and principles that help teams create consistent, scalable, and efficient user interface. Which I will agree, AI is not too bad. There is also an additional point, and I didn't ask anything else. The question was really, what's a design system? The other point is also it serves as a single source of truth for designer, developer, and every people that will interact with something that would be front-end related or UI or interface from UL element, and to try to keep the same experience for your user across multiple products, multiple tools, multiple even type of device and stuff like that. So that's really the main point. Really quickly, for the main topic, and because it's quite important, I think, to know what we're talking about, just with Sanofi, global pharmaceutical, 85,000 people. We do have offices in 70 plus countries. We are covering and delivering product for more 175, and we do have thousands and thousands of internal applications. It's not because we are a pharmaceutical company that create drugs and stuff like that, that we don't have a lot of applications. Few of them are publicly available, like the corporate website, some product website, but we also do have a lot of internal applications that are used from warehouse management. We'll see that. Just quickly, for people that are French, I'm working at Sanofi, so I do have a mandate to display the Doliprane box. That's done, I won't be fired. Amazing, we can go to the next slide. So with this kind of type of company and user that are both internal facing and public facing, we do have pretty much every use case that you can think of about building front-end application, mobile application and stuff. So we'll have applications that are running on your desktop, on your web browser, on mobile, on tablet. You can also imagine every time from iOS, from Android. People using any kind of browser, even Internet Explorer. That's an issue, but yes. Not that fun when you have to try to work on that, but yes. You also are working, for example, with application that will use a network, and we had a great presentation just before about network and everything like that. So network is great, but sometimes you just don't have network or cannot really use a network. And every type of application, from displaying some data, some information, like a basic website, social network, or internal application, to displaying live information and live feed of information from a specific factory because you want to get information from your IoT device, what's the state of the factory, and pretty much everything. And we publicly also, we do have e-commerce website. You can think of that as the Amazon or eBay of the drugs. Not Silk Road, though. And also, pretty much everything will be used at the office, of course, for internal. We also have products that are used, like I said, in factory, warehouse. We also provide tooling or specific application that are used at hospital, specific hospital, or maybe even during medical trial with people that are currently going through phases where we are getting information. People are also answering information. And also for people at home, if you are looking for, I don't know, a job and you're looking to Sanofi, you go to the career page and it's here displayed. So we have all use cases. The main one of the main points is also pretty much everything that you do in a pharmaceutical ecosystem is regulated. From displaying a simple news article to building a product that will handle clinical data, that will process patient information, that will process pretty much everything that we have, even on factories. And for everything, we do have to validate every time we do a release process. Every time there is something that it will involve quality, we'll have multiple steps of validation. And of course, even from website, we do have to validate expected behavior on specific website, on specific product. If you are moving, for example, displaying information about a medical device in France, you have specific rules. If you do the same in the US, you will have rules, but that won't be the same. If you go to Germany, it will be different. From the way some information need to be displayed, from the visual it needs to be displayed, to some disclaimer that need to be displayed. So you have a huge range of capability that are required, but that not exactly the same. And also on our side, we choose React. I do have, because someone put that earlier, we don't use Angular. I don't know who brought that this morning, but good one. So no, we are using mainly a React-based stack, at least at the target that we are focusing on, or developing everything new is based on one of the specific tools. So React first, but also Next.js, Remix, so everything that will be React-based. So we are not, for a company our size, we cannot enforce, I cannot say, hey, we have only one framework, one technology, and we only use that. There is multiple choice depending on the use case. So we are opening capabilities on that. And just a team, I don't know if I have some people from Sanofi in the room. Show of hand. Yes, one. Great. But not someone from my team, but not the right team for this talk. So no, the team really, it's a really small team, 4 software engineers, 2 designers working. But the main point here is it's a really small team to support and help develop a design system for more than 2,000 engineers. That's really the point. You can achieve a great have a great impact with a really low team, especially when you are working in specific field. I think pharmaceutical would be one. So now, let's go for a story. I have 5 minutes for a good story. I won't ask you to stand up, to do some exercise. I think you are all good. So let's imagine you are working in a pharmaceutical company. Great. You want to sell the new Doliprane, new box, new website, new everything. You have to go through a loop of 20 different regulatory stuff. You maybe then or already worked in some other product, but it's not exactly the same regulatory. It's really hard to build something in this kind of company because everything can be changing. The good points, some points are changing really frequently, others are not. So the main point on my story and trying to imagine how do you work, how do you try to build an ecosystem where you can provide specific capabilities for everyone, from public website to internal website, for people using your solution that are really used to work on a mobile, on a tablet, to people that are almost never touching a computer, but they need access to specific information or being able to access some specific data that are only available through a mobile app, a desktop, or something like that. And how do you try to do that in a meaningful way that you don't want to redevelop everything every time someone is working on a new product? Imagine you have 2,000 different products, or even 1,000, let's say 1,000 different products from different bugs, and everything is being deployed across multiple countries with specific regulation. That's a huge, huge issue, because it means that if you don't build the right foundational level, you will have to redeploy or redevelop everything every time. And this kind of number really grow quite fast, because if you take one product, 20 country, great, you have 20 different front end. You take 20 products, it's 400, and you continue like that. And 20 is not that much in terms of product and number of countries. So that's really the main idea on what we want to do. I won't go into detail with the tooling. I think if you are here, you are already working with React, you know the React ecosystem, and there is nothing really fancy about the tooling. We don't customize most of the tool, but we build new tool, and I will come back to that. So, of course, we're using React, Storybook. We do multi-browser testing, and I'm missing a quote there. But we also try to build a full testing matrix. The main issue is every time we deploy something, we have this kind of huge capabilities where we need to test from almost Internet Explorer, Edge, Chromium, Firefox to multiple devices, which grow the capability that we want to have. But let's go really into what you need to know about building a design system. And because I already had a question when I had a few discussions with people here today, is why not using an existing solution? Who here created their own design system from scratch, or their company created their own design system from scratch? Okay, a few people. Okay, who built one on top of some other existing design system, like Mountain Material, Chakra, or other one? Okay, I would say almost 50-50, maybe a bit advantage on the people that build their own. Okay, so for some people, maybe you did the same you took the same decision based on the same choice that I will present here. Maybe not. Feel free, would love to discuss. We do have a quick question Q&A at the end, so feel free to ask a question and to discuss about that. Like, I'm really curious about why you take that choice. So on our side, why we wanted to really build our design system from scratch, not using any other design system, not using Material UI or some other stuff. The first point, and I think it's really important, is we didn't want really to have dependencies. We didn't want to have to follow and to be forced to follow a new major upgrade or a new change in the library that we are using. Currently, the full design system, I think we are using 1 or 2 libraries just for some accessibility stuff. I think that's the full total of the capability of what we are using. Everything else is built from scratch. And the main idea, I hope this year, is really to reach 0. Why? Because the pharmaceutical ecosystem, even if I like to move fast, it's really great to be able to try the new trend, the last tool, to move to Rust, to do some fancy stuff. In the pharmaceutical ecosystem, most of the products are here to stay. We are working and building something like a short cycle for the pharmaceutical ecosystem is 7 to 8 years. So in 7 to 8 years, we were like, 8 years ago, it was still AngularJS, not Angular, to give an example to everyone. So that's quite a long time ago in terms of what we are building, what we can build also today. So the main idea is we don't want to be forced to have to move because we have to move. That's really the first point on we want to keep and build our own capabilities. The second part is, like I said just earlier, we do have a lot of different needs from people, from where we are operating, on which software, on which device, and everything. So we want to be able to tailor our own design system to answer those needs, not to be forced by some implementation that is done on an open source project to follow or to use a specific. And especially, I don't want to try to hack any kind of open source design system just to add a custom feature or change the behavior of something that was existing. It's most of the time tiring. In the next release, it will break 95% of the time. You will have to find a new hack, and one day, maybe you won't be able to find a new hack, so you will decide to just rebuild that capability from scratch. Let's skip all the middle step. Let's go to the last one and say, we build it from scratch. Way easier that way. Also, accessibility is a really huge need, specifically for a pharmaceutical company, and especially now in 2025. There is regulatory, and I will come back to that, but we want to not just follow what's being required by law, we want also to be able to enforce or to have more capability on the accessibility. We want to be above what's required, not because that's just sexy to do, but because we think and we want to provide the best experience for our patients, for the people that are using our application, both internally and externally. Third really big point would be also the cross-platform coherence. Most of the time, and if you build or are using a current design system, if you try to build the same solution across multiple kind of device, you may find that you won't have the same experience, or at least you won't have the experience that you want because there was some trade-off or some people choose to go through a specific way to display information on a large screen and another way on a smaller screen. And this one, most of the time, you don't want to try to change that kind of behavior. It can be quite tricky, not really uniform. For us, we don't want to lose our people on having to learn how to use the same tool depending on the device in multiple ways. That's really something important. So we really want to provide the same experience if you are using a mobile, tablet, desktop, any kind of stuff. That's really the main idea. And also, there is some constraint that you can find on using specific design system on specific kind of device or for specific use case. We want to be free of all that. Another point would be, now it's becoming a lot better. You can have almost a full customization over all the theming, dark mode, UI variation, and stuff like that. I'm saying almost because it really depends which kind of design system you will be using. So if you want to be able to have the same almost base system, but being able to play or to play with some customization on color, or even way to display some interaction or working on some specific use case, you want to have this freedom. On our side, for example, we have the Sanofi brand, that's the main one, but we have also brand for all our products that are using some variation of a color palette or a specific use case on specific button or a specific way to display information. Most of the time, you cannot do that on most of the design system. By building our own, we are able to do that. So that's really that. And again, we don't want to do hacky stuff that will break next time. Cost saving. This one is a fun point really to put here and to really work with. Because if you take a really short time, definitely you are not saving cost. If you take a 1 to 2 years time frame, you won't be saving cost on building your own design system. But if you are working for a pharmaceutical company and you are thinking 5, 7, 8 years, then it becomes really realistic that you are saving costs, or you will be saving costs on your full ecosystem. Because first, you won't have to work with hacky stuff or trying to not break a change that was implemented but you don't want to implement. But also, maybe you are using some licensing costs and it's not really something, you don't know how it can become. If we have some backend people there and you are using VMware, you know what I'm talking about. So basically you keep your cost, you know your cost, you don't have really a big change. The change really would be what will be the impact in the next year on how many new components, how many projects you can support, not really an increase in cost. If you have a team of 4 people and you plan that for 5, 6 years, it will be almost the same cost for the next 5 or 6 years. So, okay, that's the big point there. What's new in 2025? Because that was also really the topic about 2025. What's really new if you want to build a design system in 2025? I think there is quite a lot of news, quite a lot of expectations that are changing and that everyone needs to be aware of. First, not just a 2025, but it's also really, let's say 2024. The change on using and building just SPI in single-page application that were using CSR to now being able to support capability like server-side rendering. It's something that is really key, especially if you have public-facing website. I was talking a bit earlier about e-commerce website. This is something we want to be able to provide better experience, even for specific key applications that are internal application and pretty much everything. We want to be compatible, like I said, with multiple solutions, React, Remix, Next, and other capability. And there is really huge regulatory expectation. First one, I discussed really a bit about this one, the European Accessibility Act that was decided from memory 2019 or 2020, will need to be followed and really be part of every public-facing website that you have user, but also internal. So you have, 3 months now? If you are not compliant, you will need to be compliant or you can be fined. I don't remember the exact way of the fine, but that's quite costly and it's easier to try to be compliant and build something compliant with accessibility than paying a fine. So that's really one of the big points on this one. By the way, a lot of people are thinking it's only for public website. You have also specific part that say for internal user, you need to be able to provide website or specific, your application need to have capability to be used by everyone, so to be accessible by everyone, even internal application. Like I said, multiple concepts are really coexisting. We were speaking about client-side rendering, and I think a few people will be talking about SSR later on, today or tomorrow. So both need to be supported for specific use case, for specific display of information, for performance optimization, for even SEO. Like, we can find a lot of ways of concept that need to run. And also all the framework. What we decided, and that's not a pure official stuff, but mostly what we are seeing is every internal application is React-based. Every external, publicly facing application, or a lot of them, are really using Remix. No really huge decision about that, just the first one started with Remix and we continued with that. And with a big part where everything that is e-commerce, or let's say directly bringing money to the company, would be done in Next.js, which means that by having that decision, a design system needs to be able to operate with everything, which is a fun part to do, but quite complex. Meaning that we don't want to break things. We don't want to break an e-commerce website. We don't want to break the corporate website. We don't want to break an internal application that is used by 2,000 people for a clinical trial every day. So we need to enforce a lot of rules. And that's something, I think, test is something that is discussed for 20, 30 years in the software engineering world. But with more capability, more different solution, it also increased by a lot what you need to test, for example, for a front-end application. So example, all browsers that can be used. On our side, we are using, and we have people using almost every kind of browser. The main one, of course, being Chrome. Let's count Edge as a different one, Firefox, Opera, Safari. And then we have everything like Brave, and other ones. So, but I think we limit that to the 4 top ones. So that's already 4 browsers we need to run tests against. Multiple support, like I said, we have server-side rendering, client-side rendering, multiple framework. That's huge. And I went to the framework a bit too fast, but again, multiple framework. Testing against React, Remix, and Next.js, you cannot run the same tests, or at least you need to have tests that would validate use case on each part of the technology or your stack of new framework to be able to run that the right way. You don't want to be able to say, hey, the corporate website will be great, the e-commerce website will be breaking. That would be a huge issue. And also, and that's something we were not used to, especially just staying on the React ecosystem, running tests against multiple versions of the same framework. With React 18 technically still being used by a lot of people, the new one being React 19, we have to support the 2 versions of the framework, and I guess it will be the case for a good couple of years. Like, I don't expect to be able to have everyone, like more than 1,000 applications, being able to be updated and move from React 18 to React 19. So we will need to keep that up to date. Same with Remix, same with Next. So even if we are keeping, let's say, the 2 latest versions of each framework, we are speaking about 6 versions here on at least 4 browsers. So it's 24. And let's say multiple support, and I will say just CSR and SSR, it's 48 variation for one test to ensure that we are not breaking something. That's a worst case scenario, of course, but that's always good to try to run across that. So, okay, we have the rule, we have what we try to do, the main part, and what are the impact, because building a design system is something that is really huge, that can bring a lot to the company, but it can be impactful, but it can also be a huge loss of money. Ooh. Lot of lights. Less lights. Are we testing something? So no, everything that will be impact and what we saw on our hand, of course, everything needs to be taken with some, won't be perfect, it depends on the use case, it depends on which part of the company you are, and pretty much everything. But our stuff and building a good design system. So if you don't have a design system, that would be the part where you may be thinking about, hey, maybe we should need to build a design system. So the first three part is, with what we did for the last 1.5 years, something like that, the main idea is really to first offer two big part of capabilities, trying to have an impact company-wide. First one is we want to be able to say to every designer of the company, if you are starting or working on your new solution, in half a day, you can have almost a full prototype on your solution. Meaning, yes, I don't expect designers to write code, even if we are starting to see, thanks to AI, more and more people doing that, but at least with everything that will be built on Figma or every tooling around wireframing, just for people to be able to work and to prototype a simple solution in half a day. And if we are speaking about a simple solution, a simple front end, and here I'm speaking like a corporate, public-facing front end with some blogging capabilities, or maybe displaying some information about one specific drug, only a few days, less than a week, to be able to build something. For the sake of it, we did just a live demo internally. With a new product, we were able to have a prototype from the designer side in less than 1 hour, and a full build of the solution, only static, not doing HTTP call, not having to handle network and stuff like that, in less than 4 hours. So in 1 day of work, we were able to provide almost a full valid website that can be used and that can be deployed to everyone. Which means when we are going fast, if it's done correctly, it helps a lot. One point also, just in a previous sentence, I was speaking about being able to deploy and build something in half a day. Who is using Vercel or Netlify here? Amplify from AWS maybe also? Okay, a few people. The good part with those tools is you don't really have to understand what's behind the scene, behind the CLI. You can just run one specific command and your front-end website will be deployed, it will be existing, it will be live, and you can give the URL to other people, it will be working. We also build, and that's not directly part of the design system, a bit more part of tie-up that is hidden behind. The main idea is to provide the same capability for a company like us to use a one command line, and for people that don't work with backend, don't have to know anything about infrastructure, to be able to run that directly on Sanofi deployed front-end. And then basically it's done, it will package everything, and it will deploy that. So that was just one point on providing a design system is great, but it should also be linked to how can you help other people to deploy without the knowledge of that. So, and that's quite easy to do. Another point is really the time. Time for everything that every company is doing. Do we have people working on startup here? One startup, 2, 3, 4? So you know that time is the essence. You don't want to have your product delivered by another company 2 weeks before you because you spent time on something that was maybe not useful, but it's the same for every big company. If you are able to be the first to deliver something on the market, you have a good probability that you will be getting a good return on that, or at least that you will be leading that part of the product. So on our side, time is also something we monitor on how long does a project need to come from, hey, I have an idea of a project, from the first delivery. So basically the time to delivery of something. With the design system, we were able to see between 25 and 45% decrease in time or increase in velocity, basically, meaning that you have a huge cost reduction because people are going way faster to be able to deploy something with also most of the time with a better overall quality. The main idea is really to target that and not to have this kind of, to really see the picture as a whole and to say, I want to deliver something, but I want to deliver it the right way. And not the last point, but an important point. We are, like I said, again, heavily regulated ecosystem. We want really to have something that you don't need to revalidate every time. So if you are able, and that's something we are working on a daily basis, if the building block and the foundation are validated, everything you built on top of that, only using that, is by default validated against compliance, against accessibility, against a lot of other regulation. So meaning that someone that is building a website from scratch needs to go through the validation that can take weeks, but someone that is using a design system that is validated is by default approved and validated. With that, we are moving from being able to deploy some solution in less than a week. And before that, it was taking 2 to 3 months just to have an approval on the quality, on the expectation. So being able to deploy something fast is something good, and especially for compliance, because that's something that can really hurt you and hurt the company. But everything was not perfect, far from that. We learned a lot along the way, but there was a lot of issues, especially when you start a design system or you start building something huge that will have an impact in a full company. You will be fighting other people. There is politics involved. There is also quite a lot of different topics. The first one being community. You can build the best design system in the world, the best library, the best solution. It can be amazing. It can be powered by AI. That's amazing. But if you don't have a base of user or user being able to advocate for your solution internally or externally, if people just don't like you and don't want to use your tool, that's one of the main issues. So building a community is also part of a design system, or technically anything that will be done as a global scope. So building a community is really important. You need to foster this kind of both innovation, bringing feedback from the people, being able to discuss with engineer, with designer, with pretty much everyone. Because if you try to build a design system and you don't get any feedback from your first users that are engineers, that are designer, then you will have an issue. Because you will build something that is not usable, don't fit their need, or they just don't like it. That's the first one. And this one, I'm fairly certain that everyone on every company needs to improve, because that's really hard and that's not technical. The second part is we want to try to reach a perfect release state. It's not the case. We still have breaking change, which does have impact for regulatory company or specific public sector. And the main idea, we want to reach a null/0 breaking change. We want to be able to say confidently that I can deploy something on December 31st, and I won't be breaking anything even without checking or anything at all. The third one is improving the feedback loop. Most of the time when you are building something that is critical to the company, you want to build it, maybe because it's fun, it's a good challenge, it's a good technical challenge, it's interesting to build, but if you don't listen to your user, they won't be using it. And that's really a huge point on building something amazing. If you have no user and you don't have a good way to have feedback, it will fail. And the last one, still a bit around the community, trying to build an inner source mindset. So there is 4 engineers, 2 designers working on the project, serving more than 2,000 engineers. Of course, we don't have the capability to answer everyone's question, to directly support everyone. That's not something that we can do. Would be great. We don't have days that last for 72 hours or more, so we still have the same constraint of time. So trying to build this kind of inner source mindset, trying to have other people in the company that use your design system being able to participate, being able to join, being able to even review pull requests, submit new issue, that's really something that needs to be built, and it takes a lot of time. We tried to start that almost a year ago. That's definitely something that is not here today, and that will take at least 1 more year to try to have the right mindset, going through the team, being shared and spread across the organization. And finally, what's next? And what's next is a bit of the fancy part on how can we change how design systems are being seen in a company, and what also we can build all together as a way to improve what a design system can do other than just providing the front-end building blocks. First one, design system should not only be used by engineer or technical user for the code part, and should not only be used by designer if we are speaking on everything that would be, let's say, Figma related or any tool that you would use for that. One big opportunity on something that we want to do is build some kind of a playground for all employees to be able to go there and to say, hey, I have an idea to create a website. Let me take those 5 components, copy paste them, just doing drag and drop, just at least to be able to have a good look and feel of an application. That way, it really accelerates the idea of people. It brings them, it also helps people to find not only, hey, I want to build a website, I need to find someone to design something or to expect the capabilities. Here you can just take some kind of playground, copy paste, drag and drop, and you build your application. It won't be working, but at least everyone will be able to have this kind of prototype. That's what I want. And especially, it makes it real for people. Because if you are able to build something in 10 minutes quickly on your browser, people, most of the time, they do like that. They are empowered to try to build stuff or to display some part. And showing what they want is way easier for them than trying to explain what they want, what capability, and everything. Hey, we are in 2025. I had to talk about AI, LLM, and stuff like that, at least for one slide. The good part with the design system, if you have a really good documentation, is you can send that to your LLM, train, not even fine-tune something, but try to build something, just to have an LLM that will help you for design system. Like I said, we are lacking, let's say, in the term of community, in inner source, of having other people sharing. We don't have the capability to help everyone or solve every issue. So one stuff that we will be working, and currently that's an internal proof of concept, is to be able to have a simple LLM that would help you answer some of your questions, or you can even work with an LLM to prototype and say, hey, I want an application that have a menu, I want to display 2 images, a blog post, and you create something. Main ID, for example, is one product that do that very well, is V0 by Versal. That's the main ID on trying to build that. Also, it helps you to try to prototype. Let's say, hey, I want 5 versions of the same ID, can you build me that? And then you choose the best one, or at least it gives you some more insight. One also big question, do we have any people that know what the canary in the gold mine is? Yes. Okay. So it's coming from the good old days, basically, or miner that went into coal mine with just a canary. The canary died, there was an issue, and hopefully the people were able to leave. That's also something canary in the gold mine that was implemented part of Node.js. The main idea is you take the 10 or 15 or 100 projects most used in the ecosystem, and every time you release a new version, just before releasing the version, you try your new, let's say, pre-build against those projects. If you are not breaking your own suite of tests, and you are not breaking the suite of tests of those 100 projects, it helps you to be really more confident on that you are not breaking something for everyone. That's something we are working to try to, like I said, we have multiple use cases to be able to use that on top of our testing to be able to protect us, let's say, to not have regression, to not break any other application. Not perfect, but that's one of the ways. And the last point, and I'm on time for that, is really to be able to move from just providing building block. I'm thinking about not just a simple button, but some heavy menus, some full footer, header, and pretty much everything we want, to really be able to provide full capabilities by a design system. For example, if you are building 20 different websites or internal website, maybe we all have, or all the websites provide some kind of a profile. The profile should be the same. We are working in the same company, handling your profile should be exactly the same. You could hide that complexity behind only one component, and that's all. The same way, if we have multiple public websites where you can log in or register, the implementation of those same steps should not be done by every project. It should be a main capabilities. And then we can extend that by a lot. Let's say if I have 100 applications working on just different set of data, but that they all rely on finding a specific clinical trial to get the data from all users, you can build that specific functionality as a standard capabilities and just say, hey, I'm just using my component that is clinical trial search, and it's provided by everyone, reducing by a lot what can be done and what should be built. And just for the end, and I have 5 minutes left, so that way we have time for question, is really building a design system is a really long road, especially when you are working for healthcare. We have to think about what will be the state of the ecosystem in 5 years. Or is a choice that we are making today have a positive or negative impact in 2030? That's the kind of question we need to answer. We are not perfect, definitely not able to predict the future, but that's something that we try to do on what can we build that will last for a long time. And really the main idea behind that is to say, hey, let's try to build and to provide the best tool for our coworker, but also the end user of every front-end application and every tooling we are building. And I think that's the end. Thank you.